Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be providing a quick historical review of the comic book, The Imitation Game, Alan Turing Decoded, created by Jim Ottaviani and illustrated by Leland Purvis. I hope I got those names right. My main reason for doing this, other than the fact that I used images from this comic in my last review, is that compared to the movie of the same name, the comic is much more historically accurate, and I think it's kind of a shame that more people don't know about it. That being said, however, there are a few things in the comic that are somewhat historically inaccurate. And before you go out to purchase or read this comic, which you totally should, you should probably watch this video to make sure that you're better informed. This is not just a ploy to get you to watch my video, this is actually for your own good. The Imitation Game comic, like most books and secondary sources regarding the life of Alan Turing, starts out talking about Alan Turing's early life, living with his parents and older brother, as well as his time at Sherborne Public School and his friendship with Christopher Morcom. And while nothing in this part of the comic stands out as historically inaccurate, keep in mind that this comic is written not just from the perspective of Alan Turing, but also from the perspective of his family, friends, and colleagues. For instance, Alan Turing's mother is one of the comic's narrators, and seeing as this comic was written in 2016, I severely doubt that Miss Turing was alive to provide an interview. This being said, I can't guarantee that her character in the comic is 100% accurate. I'm just saying that when it comes to the comic's depiction of the narrators, chances are that some artistic liberties have been taken. So just keep this in mind while you're reading. Another thing that struck me as a bit historically iffy in the comic is that it depicts certain myths about Alan Turing as fact. For instance, in the comic, Alan's depicted riding to Bletchley on a bike while wearing a gas mask to help protect him from the pollen as he was apparently allergic. He is also depicted chaining his coffee cup to the radiator behind his desk so no one will steal it, and fighting with the Bletchley security guards because he refused to sign his ID card. As the story goes, every time Alan had to show his ID card to get into Bletchley, or anywhere else where he needed special clearance, the guard would stop him and say, "We can't let you in, your ID card isn't signed." To which Alan would then reply, "Of course it's not signed, it says don't print anything on this card." And generally, after a bit of back and forth, the guards would realize that they were fighting an uphill battle and would just let him in, proving that the best way to fight bureaucracy is by making the life of public servants exceedingly difficult. All of these are considered to be myths about Alan Turing, and it's unsure whether they're true or not, especially since so much of what we know about Bletchley Park was not made public until the 1970s, a good 25 years after the operation was shut down. Another thing that struck me about the comic, albeit a very small thing, is that both the bomb machines and the woman who operated them, the Wrens, members of the Women's Royal Naval Services, are depicted working alongside Alan and Joan in Hut 8, when in reality both the Wrens and the bombs were located in a separate building. When the bomb machine had a full stop, which is what happened when it solved the daily key, though it wasn't always right on the first try, the Wrens would then call up the codebreakers who would then proceed with the next step. Again, like I said in my Imitation Game review, by the end of the war, there were over 200 bomb machines in operation, and these were large machines. I'm talking 6.5 feet tall and 7 feet wide, weighing well over a ton, so there is no way they could have stored them all in Hut 8. I think the reason that the comic book designers decided to put the bomb machines in Hut 8 is that they wanted to depict details regarding how they worked, like the fact that they employed multiple rotors, were very loud, and that they heated up quite a bit. Though I don't think the higher-ups at Bletchley would have allowed the Wrens to strip down to their underwear while operating the bombs like they do in the comic. I'm pretty sure they would have been made to wear their uniforms regardless of the heat. The comic also touches on facts about Alan Turing and his time at Bletchley that the film completely skips over, like the fact that he actually left Bletchley for nearby Hanslope Park sometime in late 1943. The change in location was a result of a new project, often referred to as the Turing Speech Encipherment Project, where, as the name would suggest, he tried his hand at enciphering speech transmissions. My real reason for mentioning this, other than to praise the historical accuracy of this comic, is that I actually forgot to mention Hanslope Park in my movie review, and thus thought I should probably mention it here. The last thing I want to talk about is Alan Turing's arrest, which in the comic book is depicted a bit differently from how it actually happened, at least according to all the other sources that I've read. First, the Alan Turing depicted in the comic is very open about his sexuality, to the point where most of Bletchley Park seems to know about it. Joan Clark knows, the Wrens know, Alan just up and tells another guy he works with, and there is very little backlash. Well, one of his colleagues does freak out a little bit, but they still continue working together like it's no big deal. I mean, I don't think this many people would be this okay with homosexuality in the 1940s. And after his house is robbed, the comic version of Alan just up and tells a cop that he was having a relationship with Arnold Murray, a 19-year-old man. While it's true that Alan Turing was not at all ashamed of his homosexuality, he still understood that it was illegal under British law, so of course he didn't just go and tell a cop, "Hey, I'm having a romantic relationship with another man." It was also true that the real Alan Turing did not completely understand the seriousness of his offense, at least not at first, and he did believe that at this time there was a royal commission trying to legalize homosexuality, which there wasn't, but he still wasn't this out of the loop. In this instance, the movie is actually more accurate than the comic, as just like in the film, Alan Turing issued a report to the police stating that his house had been robbed, and during their investigation, they discovered the truth about him and Arnold Murray. And you probably already know the rest. Alan Turing was tried and convicted for the crime of gross indecency in 1952, and as a result, he was forced to undergo hormone therapy, where he was given injections of estrogen intended to inhibit his sexual attraction to other men. The idea behind hormone therapy was that homosexuality resulted from too much estrogen, so they experimented by giving homosexual men injections of androgen, or the male hormone, believing that it would make them straight. This didn't work, of course, so they ended up trying estrogen injections instead, which according to at least some of the recipients, helped eliminate their sexual drive completely. Thus, estrogen injections became the go-to treatment for homosexuality in Britain, until the introduction of the Sexual Offences Act in 1967, which decriminalized homosexual acts in private between two men aged 21 or older. I don't really know why women weren't included, or if the act was eventually amended to include them, but I certainly hope so. I went on a bit of a tangent there, but if you've seen the movie or if you've watched my last video, you know that Alan Turing, after less than 2 years of this therapy, in 1954 committed suicide. And since I already talked about this in my last video, and I don't want to talk about it again, please go and pick up a copy of this comic book, The Imitation Game, Alan Turing Decoded, and read about it for yourself. Well, thanks for tuning in to this rather unorthodox video. Once again, this has been Silver Jade saying please remember to support your local library, and I'll be seeing you.